Bob Whipple is known internationally as the Trust Ambassador. He speaks and consults with organizations on how to build and maintain higher trust.
Who are the most trusting people in the world? Children, right? Babies, right? They don't have a choice, right? And my daughter, when she was very young, I used to travel a lot. My daughter, when she was very young, taught me an incredibly important lesson about trust. I would come home from a trip, put my suitcase down in the kitchen, and she would run up to me and say, "Daddy, Daddy, twirl me." Right? You ever get that? And so you grab the little arms, and you have to be careful. You don't want to pull the sockets out. But so you grab the little arms and you twirl her around, and she's flying around, and the hair flying, and just loving it and giggling. I finally set her down, right? And then I hear that word that all parents get to know. What's the word? Again, right? So I pick her up, right, and twirl her around and around, longer and farther, and I finally put her down, and I'm like this, and my wife walks in the kitchen and says, "How many martinis did you have on the plane anyway?" But you know, the interesting thing about that exercise and the lesson that I learned is that of all the times I twirled her, I hardly ever dropped her. Right? You can't drop them, and that's what it is. The lesson is, and write this down, if you're not happy with the level of trust, what you need to do is find ways to trust other people more, especially if you're a leader. See, most leaders are looking for trust, but they're not extending enough trust. Does that make sense to you? We trust organizations. We trust systems. How many of you, when you drive over a bridge, are worried that you're going to fall into the river? Probably some people. It happens. It happens. I know one bridge that I worry about when I go over, so it isn't always that way. But we have to trust things in our lives.
Oh, it was wonderful, very informative. I'm definitely going to take this information back with me to work. I really enjoyed it.
Second one, posture. Very interesting that the way men and women are built. Did you know that men and women are built differently?
No, tell us more.
Men listen and hear with their ears. Does that surprise you? Women.
The listening part's a little confounding. But I'm still stumped by the listening.
Women hear with their ears, but they listen with their eyes. I see the women in the room shaking their head. Men have a very narrow peripheral vision. For the average man, the peripheral vision that you have is that of the average groundhog. You're right here. And this is why, when if you can't see the salt shaker because it's over here, that's why it drives your wife nuts. Okay? And so our peripheral vision is very limited. And therefore, we'll focus, and we're very good at focusing. Men are very good at single-tasking and focusing. But we're not wide-angle thinkers, okay? So for a man, it's like this. And that impacts how we stand, man to man. I'll talk about that in a second. For a woman, the peripheral vision at 18 inches is about 4 feet. So a woman, while maintaining eye contact, can see almost the tops of the shoes of the person so a woman takes in a huge amount of data and wants to take in a huge amount of data all at once.
Bob is also an expert on improving trust in the online environment, and that is becoming more critical. He addressed this in his second book, Understanding E-Body Language, Building Trust Online.
Okay. Well, everybody raise your finger, your index finger. Okay. I want you to look at your index finger, please. Look carefully at your index finger. That is what controls your future. Before you push the mouse, click send, you're in control.
Anybody know what the multiplier is in terms of productivity between very low trust groups and very high trust groups? I say to this, when you look in the eyes of a CEO who is desperately trying to figure out how to get 7% productivity, I need to get 2% more productivity, say, well, there happens to be this 200% productivity that happens available. If you'd like to think about changing the culture a little bit, it might be worth it.
Bob also consults on trusts with large and small organizations. Rick Lozniak of North American Breweries said, "This leadership course made a big difference in our organization. With Bob's help, we took an important step forward in trust and other vital leadership skills."
And the observation is that the amount of development of people done in high trust groups is starkly different from low trust groups. Low trust groups tend to not do a lot of developing for probably a number of reasons. Some of it's defensive, some of it's we don't have time, so whatever. But a hallmark of high trust groups is that they're fanatical about developing people. They want to get people the best that they can be.
And Bob is not afraid to try some out-of-the-box demonstrations to amplify his points.
Somebody said that I probably got the parts off the Titanic. Or I said it was probably more like the African Queen. At any rate, this is a trust barometer that I invented. And when we make deposits, most of the time we make little small deposits. How easy is it to make a small deposit? If you're a leader, how easy is it for you to make small deposits? What are some of the ways we make deposits? Smile. Okay, so we made a deposit. How else? Say thank you. Okay. Say please. Recognition. Consistency. Okay, so we make deposits in the trust account on a daily basis. It's really hard to make big deposits in the trust account, isn't it? I mean, I suppose if you have to land a plane in the Hudson River, that might be a big deposit. But you don't get a chance to do that every day, right? But withdrawals, if you're a leader and you make a withdrawal and trust isn't there, this is what happens. Now, I don't know if I can get my microphone close to so you can hear this. This is what happens.
Initiating panic sequence.
So what happened is we lost all, we may have been building trust for a year in these small deposits. And then all of a sudden, in one email, or one phone call, or just some body language in a meeting, boom, right? Now I want you to notice something. If I'm a leader and I had that kind of thing happen, and we had that withdrawal and it crashed, I'm going to start making deposits again, aren't I? I'm going to try to build it back. But notice what happens here when I start making deposits. I'm making deposits is... Quiet down, quiet down. I'm making deposits. Am I gaining any trust? I'm not gaining any trust yet, am I? Right? It takes a long time to gain back to where the deposits are actually being effective again. Does that make sense? Good analogy? You like my little game? Let me ask you this. You love it. Let me ask you this. How powerful would it be if we had a mechanism when if you're a leader and you made a withdrawal, instead of crashing down, it looked like this? Would that be powerful? That's what this thing that I call reinforcing candor does.
Bob uses many experiential activities, including role plays, body sculptures, and magic illusions.
available opportunity for promotion.
Appreciate that. I've just been kind of sitting, kind of waiting for that next opportunity. I know Ann came in a little bit later than me, and I just really feel strongly about the experience that I bring to this position, or that it could have brought to
There's
the
no
position.
question. I am your fan.
I put you really in an untenable position if you were Sam, right?
Because you're not talking about what you're doing.
You cannot win that game, and the reason you can't win is that what you did last week when you promoted Ann, if that's not what you believed in, was a mistake. And you can't get out of it. How many of the Sams caved in and said, well, it wasn't really me, it was...
Zero. Listen to you.
Were there any Sams that tried to weasel out and took the risk?
You told us not to.
Huh? I told
You told you not to.
I told you that the CEO said, please don't tell. This one is all about this issue of accountability. You know, one of the things when I run around the country talking to organizations, most CEOs are pretty much into accountability these days, aren't they? Yeah. We have to hold our people accountable. What does that really mean? In 99% of the cases, what it means is we have to find our people doing bad things and catch them, and then make them feel bad. Am I right? Is that what accountability means to most CEOs? Now look, why? Isn't it a good thing to hold people accountable because 90% of the time or 95% of the time they're doing good, right? And maybe the 5% of the time they need some coaching, or they might need a kick in the butt sometimes. That's okay. But the point is, accountability, we should not think of accountability always in a negative sense. Hold people accountable in an appropriate way, and they will blossom.
I got 3 cards in this envelope. A red one, a yellow one, and a blue one. Rick, I'd like to have you just take a look at those 3 cards and see which one resonates with you the most, and put the pen on the one that resonates with you the most right now. The blue, you just put the pen on it. Okay. So you saw how long it took him to pick the blue card, right? Was instinctive, right? Okay. So, Rick, I'd like to have you read what's on the back of the blue card.
Because of your personality, I knew you would choose the blue card.
See? See? Thank you very much. I did good, right? Any questions?
Yeah, what does it say on the bottom of those other 2 ones? Yeah.
Well, come up and look. Come up and look.
The yellow. And it'll say, because of my personality, I knew that you picked the yellow. I can't believe you didn't trust me.
What's the red one say?
I can't believe you didn't trust me.
Hello, I'm Brian Tracy, and I want to introduce you to my friend and associate and colleague, Bob Whipple. He's the CEO of Leader Grow, Inc., which is a leadership development organization located in Rochester, New York. Bob is the author of 3 great books on trust and over 350 published articles on leadership. Bob is truly an expert on trust and trust building, and he's known internationally as the Trust Ambassador. He's rated one of the top 20 thought leaders on leadership development by Leadership Excellence magazine. Now, Bob speaks and consults on leadership development with a focus on helping leaders understand how to improve trust even in challenging times. Bob's programs are both entertaining and vitally important to improving performance in any organization. Bob shows leaders how to double productivity and profits by improving trust at all levels. You'll want Bob to speak at your next event because his programs are fun and also amazingly impactful. To see a full list of Leader Grow services And to contact Bob, please visit the website www.leadergrow.com. That's www.leadergrow.com.
Several years ago, I inherited a production department of about 200 people. When I had the first meeting with my new staff, they were the most disenchanted, discouraged, and angry employees I had ever seen. I wondered if there was any hope for the group. 6 months later, that same group was a really turned-on bunch of award-winning employees who were celebrating an incredible doubling of productivity in that short period. How did we accomplish it? We simply worked to drive out fear and instilled trust in its place. I could name over 30 different benefits that groups can obtain by building higher trust. In the interest of time, I'll describe just 3 of the more important benefits. First, engagement of people. Low trust groups have about 80% of the people actually working against the vision, and only about 20% working toward it. High trust groups achieve the reverse of those statistics. 80% of the people are pulling in the direction of the vision, and only 20% are dragging their feet or not yet on board. The second benefit is solving problems. Low trust groups have an amazingly hard time solving problems because they have to work all around the interpersonal issues first. They quite often fail to solve the real problem and end up putting Band-Aids on the symptoms. High trust groups solve problems quickly and efficiently because they communicate better and often come up with creative solutions due to lower fear. The third benefit is focus. High trust groups focus on the vision and what's important to do now. Low trust groups are more myopic and spend all their time focusing on each other and how to protect themselves or put down other people. These are just 3 of the numerous benefits of high trust. Now, I'll bet you're asking, how can I get high trust in my organization? The good news is that it isn't that hard if you teach leaders how to change their behaviors to create a better culture. In my book, Leading with Trust is Like Sailing Downwind, I've documented a tested model that's worked in numerous organizations of all types to quickly improve the level of trust. The model has only 3 parts, and it centers on reinforcing candor, which is another way of saying we create a real environment where people are not playing games with each other. I'd be happy to send you a free copy of my trust model if you contact me via my website, www.leadergrow.com. The most wonderful news is that you can enjoy the benefits of higher trust in your organization, and you don't need to wait for years to accomplish it. Building trust is really not rocket science at all. It's much more important than rocket science. Thank you.
Bob is available to speak or consult with your organization. Contact Bob using the address on the DVD label.